The NFL continues to roll on here. We Talk Fantasy continues to bring you all the action and truly one of the great off seasons in NFL history. Chet Davis, Kyle Ray, Goz here with you. Before we get into talking about how it's going to affect your fantasy teams, let's talk about the people that make this podcast possible, like Lily and David Fine Jewelers, located their new spot, the Shoppes of Wilton off of Route 50. Guys, we're slowly getting into the spring and the summer and the fall. For some of you, you know that's wedding season just around the corner. Is she still your girlfriend? Are you ready to take that next step? All of us here are happily married, and we were smart and bought the great engagement ring, the wedding bands, and more to take care of her. We're still getting compliments to this day. Be like that. Head over to Lily and David Fine Jewelers and get the ring that she's looking for. Some of you have no idea what that means, what fits her style, her fashion, and how you're going to get compliments for years to go. Don't worry, the staff there, they helped me. They'll do the same for you. Wedding bands. Take advantage of the deals going on, the 2-for-1 wedding band sale. You walk in and ask about it. They'll help you out with that. On Facebook, check them out on social media. You can find out about some of the products that are there. That new spot at the Shoppes of Wilton, wide selection. They'll definitely have what she's looking for. It's Lily and David Fine Jewelers off of Route 50, the Shoppes of Wilton. Stop in, and when you hit in there, tell them you heard about it from We Talk Fantasy, Gozilla Media, Goz on Gozilla Media, all that great stuff. All right, guys, let's talk about the big trade that goes down. Tyreek Hill. There's an offer from the Dolphins, an offer from the Jets. They both accept. Then it comes down to the star wide receiver selection. He goes back to Miami. Chet, I'll start off with you on this one. What do we make of the trade involving Patrick Mahomes losing his top wide receiver and Tyreek Hill now joining the AFC East?
Where did that come from? You know, like it just seemed like such a perfect offensive unit with Mahomes having the fastest guy in the NFL. He has one of the biggest arms in the NFL, not bigger than Josh Allen. Don't worry, Kyle. And then to go along with Travis Kelce, who's one of the best possession receivers. I know he plays tight end, but he's one of the best possession, reliable receivers in the game. And so, as you hear Nola making her first appearance on this episode, but now without Tyreek Hill on that offense, there becomes a question mark. I still think they're going to be fine, but now that defenses and safeties don't have to worry about getting burned by Tyreek Hill, you can change the way that you approach the Chiefs offense now. They already were double teaming Travis Kelce in a sense. But now if you can completely take him out of the game plan, who are you worried about? Which we'll get into more about is what JuJu Smith-Schuster's fantasy relevance will be next year and how that gets a boost. As for the Dolphins, we all kind of had the same reaction. Can Tua even throw it far enough to get it to Tyreek? Like the money is amazing. And so when you're looking at why did Tyreek leave a Hall of Fame quarterback to go play for a very unproven one in Miami, the money's fantastic. And now he's in Miami. And as much as we look at who's got a better chance of winning a Super Bowl, you have to remember these guys are humans. Like this is their lives. And trust me, a lot of guys would much rather be in Miami than Kansas City. It's just plain and simple. For lifestyle, I saw him say coming home, but according to Wikipedia, he grew up in Georgia. So I'm not sure if he moved there at some point, or I don't know where that is. Maybe that's his off-season home. But when you look at those things, you're like, all right, the guy just became one of the highest paid players of all time for that position. And now he gets to go hang out on South Beach when he's not catching touchdowns, maybe from Tua.
Yeah, where'd it come from? I mean, I had a big question is like when I heard it was up to Hill where he wanted to go. Did he have a no trade clause? Because why would they let that happen? Because if you're me, the Dolphins are literally a quarterback away from being a true contender. I mean, they've got an offense that is pretty darn good. Their defense has shown that they could do great, and then all of a sudden, where'd the defense go? But if Tua has an above-average season, the Dolphins are an 11-6, possibly 12-5 team. I think they got a lot of pieces and everything, but when you look at the deal, I mean, that was a haul for a 30-year-old wide receiver, 28-year-old wide receiver whose biggest weapon is speed. I saw a lot of people saying that who's going to stop the Miami Dolphins offense? Well, Tua is going to stop the Miami Dolphins offense. Just an FYI, everybody. But my big thing with fantasy comes twofold. One, we talked about this a lot. I think Travis Kelce becomes a top 3 pick. No Hill. His target share should go up even more. I mean, you've still got Hardman, you've still got Pringle. It's going to be interesting where those two guys fall because who is going to be that number one wide receiver or even number two? Is JuJu the number one? Like, I think there's so many unknowns that who's going to be that number one wide receiver. And then when you look at the Dolphins, is Tyreek Hill the number one? Is Waddle the number one? I don't think you Tua or Hill in the top 2 rounds. I think you can go numbers in the 3rd round and grab them just because I'm afraid of the quarterback. And I know people are saying, look at what Waddle did, 100 receptions and 1,000 yards his rookie year. Yeah, he was the only receiver outside of Mike Gesicki. And Gesicki got all his yards because anything Tua threw, somehow it attracted to Mike Gesicki's top 2, his pointer and thumb, because that guy's got hands. So I have a lot of question marks at what this means from a fantasy perspective. But I love Kelsey this year now with Hill being gone, and I still don't know what to make of where you would draft Hill and Waddle coming in this year.
Yeah, 2 things to go off of that. 2 things Kyle said there. One, involving well, you both said this, involving how and where this came from. It's funny because we've all kind of poked fun at like the salary cap doesn't exist. It makes no sense. Like the money's fake. It's like, whose line is it anyway? The points don't matter. The salary cap doesn't. It actually came back to bite, if you want to use that phrase, the Packers and the Chiefs, where they had to decide, okay, we gave our quarterbacks historic money, the number one wide receivers that we just couldn't pay if we wanted to build a competitive roster. But the teams decided, hey, if we've got to make a decision between a star quarterback or a star wide receiver, we're picking the quarterback 100 times out of 100. Like, that's just how this is going to go. And history has told us over the last 20 years, both fantasy football wise and real football wise, that when a wide receiver in particular leaves a Hall of Fame quarterback, they're nowhere close to having the same success again. We could do a laundry list of guys. Hell, some guys never even played in the league again, from like Hines Ward to Antonio Gates to Marvin Harrison. Randy Moss's best season was New England and Brady. It's hard to find an example of a receiver who left a Hall of Fame quarterback and was anywhere even close to having the same production post that Hall of Fame quarterback for the rest of their career and being fantasy relevant. So with both these guys leaving and finding a new opportunity, I want to go back to what Kyle said about Travis Kelce. Yeah, like he is a top 3 pick now. He is. And there were rumors, in late November, early December, I think we all had the conversation of, is he 1? Like Jonathan Taylor is going to be in the mix. Christian McCaffrey is potentially going to get traded. That was a rumor earlier in the offseason. You might make a case that he's 1. Kyle does the thumbs down. Chet has that. Look, I'll toss it out there. I think he's top 3. I think that's perfect. You have the 3rd pick, go Kelce, but maybe in the 1 discussion too.
My thumbs down was to CMC. Bad list for me.
Okay.
I am way lower on Kelce. Way lower. The offense is not as good. So scoring opportunities are going to go down. How many times did Tyreek bail that offense out with some amazing plays? Sure, Patrick Mahomes is still going to be under center, and he's going to be hopefully doing some magic like he did prior. But I don't know. If I'm a defense now, I only have to worry about Kelce. You don't have to double JuJu. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't needed double coverage at all in his career. I don't think he's ever faced it. So if I look at that and I just have to stop a 33-year-old tight end in Travis Kelce, yeah, I put more faith in defenses, which are also that's becoming more of a way that teams are drafting. These hybrid, they're almost like oversized strong safeties to find a way to stop the Travis Kelce's, the Darren Wallers. Have they been successful? Not really, but that's kind of how the new hybrid position is being made to make sure that you don't let Gronkowski, have 10 catches for 450 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I don't know. I'm much more hesitant. I'm worried about not only is he an aging tight end who has had an insane workload over the last 6-7 years in a row. He's been over 1,000. Like the guy's been durable, but holy cow, he takes a lot of hits. It's not like Tyreek where he can run out of bounds every time. Kelce's usually dragging defenders on every catch. And now that's all people have to worry about. Sure, maybe he gets an increase in targets, but I'd prefer having the fastest guy in the NFL taking the top off of defenses and allowing Kelce to get those big, long runs.
You bring up some points that are inarguable. Like you can't argue the fact that there's no more double teaming. So is there safety help more on Kelce versus double linebackers or something like that? The only thing I'll rebuttal with the Kelce portion of it is how many times were Kelce managers furious that Tyreek got the 1-yard touchdown on the goal line on that stupid little drag route that he ran to there. Those targets now go to Kelce.
The stupid little shovel pass to Kelce. Like, it's just Andy Reid he loves to be creative.
But that's what I'm saying is those opportunities for Hill are now Kelsey's opportunities.
So do you think
those are Kelsey's now?
But you think defenses know that? Do you think defenses know that? Like, if I'm a DC and all I have to worry about is stopping Kelsey at the goal line, make someone else beat you. When it was Kelsey and Hill, I feel like it's an equal concern of either one needs double coverage. Like, you can't.
I think it's a different story. I think it's a completely different story in the red zone because you have to be aware of, you have to play 6 or 7 linemen to stop the run. So your coverage options are much more limited. That's what I mean is like, you're not doubling people in the red zone often, I'll say. You aren't doubling Tyreek Hill in the red zone. You're more playing man-to-man with maybe some help over top because you had to play 6 or 7 people in the box.
I think a lot of the times they were scared to do man coverage because he can just run across the back of the end zone and beat anybody in a foot race.
But so that's my thought.
Zone coverage when you're facing a team like that because you can't allow Tyreek to just beat someone across the end zone.
Right. My other thought is, how do we know JuJu doesn't need to be doubled? He played with Ben in the end of towards the end of his career, and was it JuJu's rookie year? He actually had a really good year.
No, he's amazing, and that's when Antonio Brown was being doubled.
So, I think there's just still some question marks on. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say JuJu is going to have Tyreek Hill numbers or he's going to have a 1,500-yard reception receiving because I don't think it's going to happen. But I also know that JuJu looked pretty darn good quite a few times, and Mahomes, I think, makes him better.
If I'm not mistaken, that was like 4 years ago.
Has he been in the league 4 years?
I think so.
Sheesh, he's old.
3. But it's been rough. It's been rough ever since Antonio left after that rookie year.
Yep.
Let's go a little old school with this question. I'll start with you on this. Real or mirage? Tyreek Hill can finish the 2022
mirage
regular season as the number one. You know what? Or injury. The number one wide receiver in fantasy. New coach. Tua. You've already said mirage. All right.
I think he's going to be lucky to be top 10.
Ooh. Okay.
Because you got Waddle. You now have a ton of competition in there. That offense is not close to as powerful. People can say the yak and everything like that. Cool. That's literally what I'll say is cool. You got to pay attention to Tyreek, but then there's Waddle, the target share to I think he'll be lucky to crack the top 10.
Chet. Real or mirage?
I lost my mute button there. Like a puppy playing with a bunch of toys and making a bunch of noise. So for number one, mirage. I just don't see it. I think there's better all-around receivers who are on better offenses than Tyreek. Again, it was just such a perfect match to have a guy like Mahomes who can extend plays to allow the speed of Tyreek Hill to do something special. And that, even though Miami has made some huge moves this offseason. Like, it's not just adding Tyreek. I mean, they've added Teron Armstead, who's a perennial Pro Bowler for the Saints. I'm pretty sure they added another significant lineman. Also added Chase Edmonds into the backfield. Cedric Wilson, wide receiver for the Cowboys. Like, they've added a lot of pieces, and now what everyone says is a brilliant offensive mind and their new head coach. So this could be a massive step forward for this offense, but it is all going to come down to how much can Tua develop. And unlike the development we've seen out of Josh Allen, which was unprecedented, there was never once a concern that he could get the ball down the field. It was, can he be accurate? I don't understand how Tua is just going to be able to discover more throwing power. You know, like that's what's going to make this offense scary. And we texted about it on the side, which, by the way, I don't know why our text group just feels wrong compared to us being in the Twitter DM.
Right? It does feel different.
Somehow Kyle muted Goz, and so we've had to. I don't know why we were having a Twitter. It just worked now. It was the only group text that was on Twitter for me, and it was great. And now we've had to just go to a normal group text, and it's just not the same. But imagine if Miami had gotten Deshaun Watson, like. We're looking at this team, barring any suspension for Deshaun, as legitimate contenders. Like, I don't think there'd be any question. But now it all just going to be about what can Tua do in this year to develop and get in sync with these guys. I'm not buying in all the way. I still believe in the talent of Tyreek and that he's going to have explosive plays. It's just not going to be to the same extent we saw in Kansas City.
I've got a question involving JuJu Smith-Schuster and DK Metcalf. But before we get to that question, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Mohawk Honda. The spring is here. Guys, the snow is officially gone. It's great because maybe you're hitting the road trip for the spring and the summer. You want to get in a vehicle that you can trust when you're driving around wherever you might be. Mohawk Honda can help you find it. Shout out to Cam McKenna, Brian McKenna, Greg Johnson, everybody over there, especially Nick and Nate, man, who are doing a great job on their social media platforms, showing off the Plate Change Challenge, Facebook, Twitter, and all the social media platforms where you can find out more about the people that are making it happen at Mohawk Honda. People that you can trust during the car buying experience. You're probably going to hear me talk about it for the rest of the year because I'm so proud of the vehicle. The 2022 Pilot EXL. I'm driving that around. Best vehicle I've ever had in my life. I thought my Pilot was great years ago. This is even better now. Don't you want to tell your friends and your family members I'm in the best ride I've ever had in my life? You can make it happen thanks to Mohawk Honda, where they're going to find a vehicle that fits your budget, your lifestyle, and more. And with gas prices continuing to go up, you want to find a vehicle that's more efficient for you. The place is Mohawk Honda. Glenville, New York, Mohawk Honda, where they always go out of their way to please you. I'm just hoping that Kyle's in a Mohawk Honda right now. We'll just assume he is for the visual audience.
Absolutely.
Chet, I'm going to throw this to you because you mentioned his name first. Go ahead, Chet.
Whose name are you going to mention?
I was going to say JuJu because you brought it up, like the old buzzword. You mentioned JuJu, yeah.
Yeah, let's go with JuJu. What you got?
Do you think he is going to be somewhere in this fantasy mix of maybe not Tyreek Hill numbers, but I guess I could see an emergence of what he looked like early in his career for Pittsburgh, where he was more fantasy relevant, I guess is the softer, easier question I'll toss at you.
100%. And his ADP is going to be much higher than we've seen the last few years in Pittsburgh. There's just no denying that where Patrick Mahomes is compared to where Big Ben was at his career and just how that offense was looking. And now looking like the number one. We don't know at this time as we're taping on a Wednesday. What time is it? Almost 11, 10:30. So is Kansas City going to make a move? Are they going to try to bring somebody else in? But as it stands right now, he's the number 2 option behind Travis Kelce. And so the number 2 option in Kansas City has done really well. So he has all the opportunity in the world to try to bounce back his career. As a Steelers fan who's watched a lot of Pittsburgh games and also had some fantasy stock in JuJu 2 years ago, something's not right, man. Like he doesn't have the speed that he showed in his first couple years. And look, he has had some injuries big injuries that he's had to try to bounce back from. So what does he have left? I really don't know, but he's going to have every opportunity to go out and prove it. So he's probably the toughest one to pinpoint. Like, even though I'm not agreeing with you guys that Kelsey's a top 3, I still think Travis Kelce is going to be a top 3 tight end. Like, book it, forget it. It's going to be him, Waller, and Andrews, without a doubt. Could JuJu be a top
Dawson?
5? Okay. Yeah, okay. Could JuJu be a top 5 receiver? He could. Could he be outside of the top 20? He could. Like, that's a pretty wide range when you're trying to figure out where to draft JuJu. I mean, we're going to have to see what he looks like, I guess, and kind of trust what beat reporters are saying, what it looks like in practice. But that's a big question mark right now that I don't think I'm going to have an answer for until I get to see him and get some reports on how he's fitting in that offense.
Yeah, name a wide receiver that's going to have a larger range of potential. So I think Chet hit the nail on the head. I can see JuJu finishing at like number 30. Could also see him finishing at number 5. It's just his gap between where he could be and where he's going to end up, I think, is one of those where you're like, Jamar Chase is probably going to be, either wide receiver 1 or, between that 1 and 5 range. No, JuJu's across the map. I mean, you just don't know where he's going to go. And then, like I said, Chet hit it with the beat reporter stuff. I mean, it's going to be interesting with who's going to be throwing. It's going to be really important, I think, to pay attention to some of these early preseason games to figure out, is it Byron Pringle? Is it Mecole Hardman? Is it a new guy? Because I'm guessing the Chiefs are going to go after that kid from Memphis who replicates Tyreek Hill. And then where does JuJu lie in the pecking order? Because it's going to be an interesting little bit to figure out what that offense is going to look like. And it's going to be risky to take one of the wide receivers, I think, from that offense, because you just don't know what it's going to look like during the regular season. I
like JuJu. I don't know if it's like being in the non-traditional media setting now, or the name, or the antics when they're down a little bit on social media. I find him okay. I know both of you looked at me like, guys, have you seen some of the nonsense he posts? I think it's because maybe arena football and the NAL and all that stuff is coming up soon. and that preaches personality and dances and everything else that maybe I'm getting in the mindset to broadcast an Albany Empire game. I'm like, all right, these are the athletes I know I'm going to cover. And maybe JuJu fits that mold better than even an NFL player. But I feel like when JuJu, if let's say you draft him, right? You can argue with like a Jamar Chase that Kyle just brought up. Like, okay, Chase was incredible. Here are his numbers. Here's his numbers. Stephon Diggs the same way. Here's his numbers. I feel like when you leave draft day with JuJu, you're just going to be like, he's got Mahomes. And no one's going to argue with you. Like, okay, like I got it. He's got Patrick Mahomes, and that's it. The end. And you're going to feel good about the pick. I want to play a game coming up here, by the way, too, of more likely, less likely, no change. There's a little tease for you guys of especially draft day. When you hear some of these names that have moved, if you're going to be more likely, less likely, or no change to draft him, JuJu is going to be on that list we're about to play. But Chet, you mentioned this mass text we've got going on now. Go ahead. Were you going to say something? I saw a waving, almost Harry Potter like
an idea for a game as well. Are we leaving the AFC West right now?
I was going to go to the NFC West, but we can stay in the AFC West.
One, real quick.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this when the news broke about Davante Adams joining the Raiders and just another star player going to the AFC, and namely the AFC West. Okay. So I'm going to play a game for you guys. If you could have one of these teams, like all of the fantasy relevant players on a fantasy roster, which one would you prefer? And I wrote them out for you. So, and I'm doing them in 4. So you're having the big 4 on these 4 teams: Mahomes, Clyde, Kelsey, and JuJu. David Carr, Josh Jacobs, Davante Adams, and Darren Waller. Did I say David? Sorry. Derek Carr. His brother's David. So Carr, Jacobs, Adams, Waller. Or Herbert, Eckler, Allen, and Mike Williams. Last one, Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams, Judy, and Sutton.
I'll go first. I'm going Mahomes.
Really?
I'm going Mahomes on that. I would go Mahomes because I know what I'm getting out of him. Like, there's so much change. And maybe this is a personal thing that I don't like change. Like, I see movement, I see unknown, I see unpredictability. One of my favorite quotes in fantasy, right? Like, you reduce your risk. That's the hope. There's a lot of risk floating around there in the AFC West. There's some great football. There's some fantasy risks. I would still go safe, lame, conservative. You can describe my pick however you want. I would still go Kansas City.
I am going with the Raiders. I'm taking.
Whoa.
Yep. And I think part of it is, and I'm assuming this has got to be part of the equation, but it might not be. But offensive line play, I think, has to play a small piece of it.
Certainly they're going to be the ones helping produce the points.
Right. So, like, I think the Raiders have the better offensive line than the Chargers because I want to see Herbert not running for his life and getting absolutely walloped 8 times a game. And how do you say no to wide receiver 1, tight end, arguable 2, 3? And then I still am a big fan of Josh Jacobs. I love the dude. So I'm gonna roll the dice with Mr. Carr.
We're gonna have 3 different answers because I'm going Chargers.
I was gonna say you're going Chargers.
Oh.
I'm gonna go Herbert, Eckler, Allen, and Williams. I do love. I mean, the Davante Adams, Darren Waller combo. I think you make the case that's the number 1 wide receiver tight end combo in the in the nation, in the league right now. Like, that's just so deadly. It's going to be all up to Carr and see if he can keep that offense rolling, which that offense was amazing for the first half of the season last year and then sputtered for the final half and then early exit in the playoffs. But I love the development of Herbert. Austin Eckler, there's got to be some sort of touchdown regression from what we saw last year, but he was one of the most consistent running backs in the league last year behind guys like Jonathan Taylor. And then Keenan Allen, another guy that's super consistent. Can Mike Williams continue being a big play guy? They gave him the contract to try to do so. So I think it's amazing. And the fact that we're leaving off Russell Wilson and Javonte Williams, who can make a huge step forward. I think their weapons at wide receiver are what's holding them back, but maybe those weapons have been held back by not having a quarterback and having one of the worst quarterbacks in Drew Lock trying to throw them the ball and Teddy Bridgewater, who's, a very conservative guy. So I could see Jerry Jeudy being one of those scary breakout players. The AFC West is bonkers. Like, wow, West. There it is right there.
I wish statistically, like, they could all make the playoffs, and maybe with 8 teams it could happen. I just don't think the math would allow that to happen, where a last place or 4th place team would make it happen, right?
All but one can make the playoffs.
Yep. Oh, you think Oh, you don't think Denver's going to make it no matter what? Is that what you just kind of alluded to right there? Or was there another team that you were hitting at?
Oh, I don't think Denver's making the playoffs.
Gotcha.
I think they've gotten better, but they're not making the playoffs. I don't think that they've got. Everybody says they've got all the pieces, but I think that offense is still going to struggle. I really do.
I'm fascinated to see what Nathaniel Hackett can do with Russell Wilson too. If the hype is too much around him and he can't handle it. I want to flip it back to DK just because it got some reactions this morning. This is the first name we were talking about before we get to DK and his future and maybe potentially his new contract or whatever it might be. Maybe you're thinking about making some changes in 2022, like all these NFL players, and maybe those changes start with saving some cash. At the end of the year, you look back and say, thank goodness I could look back and didn't have to spend that much money on my insurance policies, on my car, my home, my small business. Jared Lozier is the guy for you. 518-956-3753. 518-956-3753. Northeastern Insurance. Email him. Maybe you don't even realize what you're paying right now for your insurance quote and thinks, oh man, I actually have no idea what my number is. Can I actually save money? One email. That's it. JAREDL@nemail.com. Title it, Can You Save Me Money? Are you that bald guy at Hooters that hangs out with Levac and Gaz? I want money, please. JAREDL@nemail.com. You can say it, you heard it right here on We Talk Fantasy, and Jared will give you a free quote. And by the end of the year, you get a new insurance policy for things that are important to you, and you get that nice little fat check in the mail. Well, maybe not in the mail, but you realize in your mind, I saved money. Thank you, Jared. Jared Lozier, Indianapolis Colts fan. Jonathan Taylor, number 1 in his fantasy draft. We Talk Fantasy. You heard it right there. DK Metcalf. I don't know who texted it. I don't know if it's Chet or Kyle. So whoever, Chet, I think it was you bright and early at 7 a.m. while you're anchoring the news, probably right in mid-segment. What are you thinking about DK? Camera cuts to you. What do you think? Should DK Metcalf stay in Seattle, or is it time for him to make a move?
I mean, I think DK should do everything in his power to try to leave. I think your response to that, Gaz, was Seattle should do everything they can to keep him there, because if they're going to either draft a quarterback or try to develop someone, having that solidified number 1 is huge. But I don't know. I just can't imagine Seattle is going to fill that void quickly, and also letting go. They let go of their best player on both sides of the ball. You know, losing Bobby Wagner, losing Russell Wilson. You've lost your leadership. They're going to take a massive step forward in an extremely competitive division, similar to the AFC West. The Rams, defending Super Bowl champs, Cardinals were the last undefeated team remaining, if I'm not mistaken, and the 49ers were in the NFC Championship game. So, like, they're not going anywhere. So why would you not try to get a ransom? I mean, look at what they just got for Tyreek. You know, if you can be able to get a first-round, second-round pick, I would look at it if I was Seattle, because what are you holding on to at this point? It's going to be a while. It's going to be a long haul. And I look at DK Metcalf. He's one of those fiery competitors. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's unfair how OBJ got labeled as a prima donna. Because I think a lot of times it's just him being competitive. He just wants to win. We see the same reactions out of Tom Brady, but we react differently when it's a guy like OBJ. But you saw that. You almost saw it crumble before our eyes last season when DK and that offense were not vibing. When it wasn't going well when Russell came back from injury, DK was getting very visibly frustrated. How's that going to go if it's Drew Lock? How's that going to go if it's Geno Smith? That's not going to go well. That's not how you want your locker room to try to rebuild to where you were a few years ago. So this would be the time to do it, when his stock is never going to be higher. And if I'm Kansas City, I'm looking at, okay, we lost Tyreek. Do we think we're good enough to win a Super Bowl? Do you think we're good enough to outscore Buffalo again? I don't know. I don't think that answer is yes right now. So what can we do? Who are the teams that are sellers already? And I think Seattle's one of those teams, and that's the guy that I'd want to go after.
If I'm Seattle, I agree. DK needs to probably leave. But if I'm Seattle, I'm waiting till midseason to trade him and see what these teams need and then get more. So you look at, I think, Chet, you hit the nail on the head. Kansas City, if they can't make a deal early this year, do they see like, hey, what do we got? Are we, 5-2 to start the first 7 games, and all of a sudden, let's get DK. I'm going to give you this coming year's first round pick and the next year's for DK. Guess what? Bye. And then just on Seattle's point, see what you've got. I know you've lost Russell. I know you lost Bobby Wagner, but there's still pieces on that team that could be salvaged. See what you can do in the draft. See if you can get a quarterback, and then go from there. I don't think you need to rush it, especially with DK's contract. He's still got 1 more year on his rookie deal. And And then if mid-season you're like, man, we stink, it's time for rebuild mode, sell DK, give him to a contender, try to get a couple firsts for him and go from there. And worst case scenario, you keep DK Metcalf, you extend him, and you build him around the franchise. But I still think Seattle needs to wait another year to see what's going on with DK before getting rid of him.
What about Tyler Lockett? That might be some bait where he doesn't. Tyler Lockett's a good player.
Yes,
I don't think Tyler Lockett puts asses in seats. DK does. Like, people love DK. Kids buy that jersey. Are people buying Tyler Lockett jerseys? I don't know. But that's a guy, again, if I was if I was Kansas City, it's like, all right, you're going to hold on to DK. We get it. What can we do to get Tyler Lockett? Because that's a little bit more of a similar skill set to what Tyreek was. Speed guy down the field, somehow makes up miraculous catches, even though he's always undersized. Like, he's one of those type of players.
Should the Jets be the number one team? Like, the Jets feel like after and I say whiffing on Hill, they didn't do anything wrong. They said yes to the trade. Hill just wanted to go to Miami. It's not, I know Jet fan won't think of it like that, but Jet fan should probably be that team who's number one to get Lockett and Metcalf. Lockett would be more likely to be maybe the one to move when you mentioned that, Chet, because of if you're the Jets, you can pay a smaller cost to get him because of where they are in their careers and production and everything else. Man, hearing both of your answers has me spinning right now about DK Metcalf because they are both really good points. And the contract situation too, I'm like, okay, if I'm DK Metcalf, my team's probably going to stink because the NFC West is really good. But there's a really good chance if Rashad Penny is not the player we saw for the last 5 weeks of the season, if somebody, Drew Lock, a rookie, Baker Mayfield, if somebody can just throw the ball my way, statistically, I could have the best season of my career. And I'm going to enter free agency with the best statistical season of my career and sign anywhere I want. Now, look, could the quarterback suck and Metcalf, like Chet, you're kind of alluding to this a little bit, attitude issue and blah, blah, blah. I hope that someone advises this guy, like, look, you were a second-round pick. We saw how passionate were you when you finally got drafted. This can be your year where you go make your money next year. Look at all the other guys who just had huge contracts. Just don't say much. Be productive. Hell, if Seattle, I don't know, we'll say 5 games. If Seattle wins 5 games, people might look at that as an overachievement and give him the credit and make even more money. So statistically, it could be a huge season for DK Metcalf, and hopefully he sees that 12 months from now, it could benefit him. One of you guys mentioned the trade, right? Boy, if the price comes and you want to make that move, it feels a lot more like a baseball trade, doesn't it? Like trading for a pitcher at the deadline for a contender, then going and get the money if you're a pitcher. And NBA the same way. I got to go get a scorer, a shooter. It feels like cross-sport comparison. I would try to stay if I was DK, though. Which kind of leads to this, right? The game I want to play with you guys called More Likely, Less Likely, No Change. And again, we're here in a little later March now, and a lot of things can change when it comes to beat reporters and camp and more additions and everything else. More likely, less likely, no change if you see this guy on the draft board, and you can even toss that around if you want, if it helps you out figure this out. But before we get to it, Johnstone Supply in Troy usually sponsors our mailbag. They're going to sponsor this week. Spring is here. You've heard it a few times on this podcast, but some of you put off updating your furnaces and your boilers. Stop doing that. Call our guys, Johnstone Supply in Troy, 518-272-5922. 518-272-5922. Save that in your phone. All right, I put this off all winter long. Let's call somebody to figure it out. Hopefully get our guy Tom on the line. Big Titans fan. He's got the long hair. It's going to be flowing like the baseball season is here. Shout out to our guy George as well, Kevin, James, all those guys over there helping you find it. And for those of you getting ready for your spring projects, best prices on Milwaukee tools guaranteed. 6th Avenue. Stop in. Get your tools for the spring projects on the way. Johnstone Supply in Troy. Facebook, Johnstone Supply NY. Kyle, I'll start with you. Let's do the one we just did. More likely or less likely or no change at all of where you would draft DK Metcalf?
Less likely. I don't know why I overthought that way too much, but yeah, less likely. Quarterback situation. I know you were mentioning the statistical portion, like does somebody, but Drew Lock proved that he can't throw the ball to them. Now, you say Baker Mayfield all of a sudden goes to Seattle, I might say no change, and I'll probably try to grab DK in the second round. But right now, current Seattle offense, I'm going to go less likely.
Yeah, I agree. too much of a question mark of who's going to be throwing them the football. It's worrisome, man. It really is, because even with Russell Wilson coming back from that hand injury, that offense just wasn't the same. And so I've said it before, Drew Lock has put up some of the worst statistical numbers in the last couple seasons. I just can't imagine that they're going to roll week one with him. Why is that guy getting more chances? I don't understand. But they really might not have another option unless they make another trade, which we're going to have our 4th or 5th emergency podcast, because it's been the most wild offseason of all time. Hey, real quick, Kyle, how bad does your car smell right now? Are you
Pretty awful.
Are you just basking in stank? Like
Pretty bad.
I feel like when Goz is doing the reads, you're just like, wow, I smell like shit. And for
Yeah.
people listening, Kyle just got done with an intense workout. Like, I can see the sweat marks on his sweatshirt. And now he's, we're at 35 minutes of clam baking in his own fucking. I must have the F-bomb in his own stank. But yeah, I'm like inside your head right now, being like, wow, I reek.
This was a bold move on my end, and it's not a smart one.
No one's
and
gonna buy that lease vehicle after you.
And I can't even roll down the windows because it's like sprinkling out, so I don't feel like getting rain in my car.
I don't know what's more surprising on this edition of the podcast: Kyle being able to last through the whole thing with the stank in his car after a workout, or as you can see on our visual side, my son Rex has decided to crash. I had Rex up in his chair. It's like he's eating and enjoying. Yeah, hello, hi Rex. There you go, raried in, right? I had him up in the chair. He escaped. He has escaped from his chair. His mom needs to be notified that he now can escape from his high chair and walk around. I heard it. Da-da. I turn around. He's there. How'd you get out? How did you get out? Anyways, for me, it's more likely for DK Metcalf. Whoa. And this is completely biased, completely personal. I have never had DK Metcalf on a fantasy team. Never any league. And it's nothing against it. Just like he's never gotten to me. And if I feel as if some people in my draft are going to pass on him for some of the reasons we've laid out, and I can get him, boy, I would hope for an early third. That would be great. Probably not, possibly. I think I'm more likely to draft Metcalf because he's big, he's strong, he can make plays. I like Metcalf. I like him. I want him on my team. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll reach on him if needed. Kyle, I'll let you start with this one. More likely or less likely or no change at all for JuJu?
Oh, I think I got to go no change. And the reason being, he was going to be a later round for me anyways, like 5, 6, 7. I had no real plans of him, but I just don't know what to expect from Kansas City and where his whole thing's going to be. So I'm going to go no change with JuJu. I don't think I'm going to try to move up to grab him. I don't think I'm going to drop him. I think I'll just keep him where I had him.
If this is based on what's happened, it's more likely for me. I don't even know if he was on my radar, like he really couldn't have gone to a better situation as a free agent. I didn't expect him to be a number one, especially on a number one team that has Mahomes. I say number one receiver. Number one pass catcher in that team is still Travis Kelce. But even when he joined Kansas City, I was still like, he's playing behind Kelce. He's playing behind Tyreek. Nope, Tyreek's gone. So that definitely makes me more likely. I still have a lot of concern because I'm not sure. I just don't want to assume that he is just going to fill the volume left behind. I think it is going to be more of a committee. And Kyle, I remember you mentioned, I think Pringle's actually in Chicago now, but they still do have Mecole Hardman. Yeah, I think Pringle signed with the Bears.
I did not even know he left.
Yeah, I think Mecole Hardman's still there. I don't know about Demarcus Robinson. I don't know. But it feels like when you have Patrick Mahomes and some of these other Hall of Fame quarterbacks, they make something out of nothing, Mentioning if anyone plays the Wordle version of the NFL, and Alan Lazard is a perfect example. Like you can find Alan Lazard in the draft. And so we'll see what Kansas City does there. But I'm definitely more inclined than I was a week ago on JuJu.
I'm going to feel like I said the exact opposite of what I just said about DK Metcalf, that I would like JuJu on my team as well. But I feel like if we compare DK and JuJu, DK is most likely at this point to fall in drafts, and JuJu is most likely to be reached for in drafts. So I guess I'm going to go with less likely here because I could truly see somebody in like a late to mid second round just take a flyer on JuJu and be like, I don't want anybody else in the league to get this guy. I don't like that idea because I'd like him. But I could seriously, like, someone could talk me into it on draft day for the reasons I said earlier in the podcast of he has Mahomes, so I feel like he can make a play and have that stuff happen. I guess I'm going to change the wording of this. Will draft or won't draft? Would you guys draft Matt Ryan now that Matt Ryan's an Indianapolis Colt quarterback?
Hell no. No. So many better options, and that's still going to be a run first team. Like it's funny. I don't know if we've ever seen a team do this where is this going to be the third year in a row that they've gone after a veteran? I know Carson Wentz is still pretty young, but going from Phillip Rivers to Carson Wentz to Matt Ryan, like what the hell is like the plan here? I don't have any more confidence in Matt Ryan than I do Carson Wentz. I really don't. And so that offense is Jonathan Taylor. Like that's what's going to make that offense go. I could see games where Matt Ryan puts up a nice fantasy total. It might be a solid streamer. I also see some single digit performances where they just don't need to throw. And the red zone is going to go to Taylor. And so, yeah, I just think there's a lot more reliable guys out there than Matt Ryan. So he will not be on my radar.
I literally just sat here playing all the scenarios of like available wide receivers in my head. Like, was there any way I would draft Matt Ryan? Even if Julio went there, I'm still no. He has been bad the last couple seasons. He goes to a, in my opinion, worse team. In terms of wide receiver weapons, in terms of weapons. Now, granted, Ridley wasn't there for half the year last year, but just no, he's not on my radar. I personally wouldn't even take him for like my second string quarterback. I don't even know if in a 2 quarterback league, it's hard to say you wouldn't get him because you're gonna on a 10 team you're having 20 quarterbacks plus backups, but I'd try to stay away from Matt Ryan. He might be like 30, 31, 32 in my book.
I know we covered Watson, Rodgers, Wilson in the most previous podcast. So I like to close with like the NFL rookies. And I know this is a huge like blanket statement, but I feel like this is how we've been closing most podcasts here in the offseason about this draft class. Skill positions, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Watching what this offseason continues to be. More likely, less likely, or no change at all of when you would draft your first rookie. And take that statement for whatever you want. It's not changed at all with all the movements this offseason.
I am way more likely now with all of the movement because I feel like there's a lot of teams out there. There's holes. When you look at Green Bay, they need a weapon. They need a wide receiver. They're probably going to be getting one. The Bills are going to be going after a wide receiver. The Chiefs are going to probably be going after a wide receiver. If all this DK and Lockett stuff pans out, Seattle's going to go for a wide receiver. I'm more likely going to be focusing in on the wide receiver position. The kid from Alabama. There's some running backs that I like, but I also hate taking a rookie running back unless they go to a good situation. But I'm way more likely to look at wide receivers, especially those first and second round wide receivers, based on all the moves that we've seen.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one to answer. Because it is all going to be about opportunity. I thought Kyle was going to say yes, just because no matter what, he's going to be drafting Kenneth Walker. Like,
if he's available in the 3rd round and he went somewhere that needs a running back, he's mine. Like, if anybody takes him, I'll trade you my one.
We have that. You're recording, guys.
I heard that, especially for dynasty leagues. Is that what I heard? Dynasty keeper leagues, right?
Get that and send that to me. But yeah, I think because of these moving pieces, there are a lot of glaring holes where teams are going to need some help. I'm going to say yes, because maybe this was just a fluky thing. I don't know what that noise was. Kyle opening the door. Get a little hot there, Kyle?
No, just I couldn't take it anymore.
Think that bad?
Yes.
Oh man, his eyes are tearing up.
It's bad.
But maybe last year was kind of a fluky thing with how great Jamar Chase was. But maybe NFL skill players are just getting more and more ready to come into the NFL, because it wasn't just Jamar Chase. The year before it was Justin Jefferson.
Year before that
was
that DK or was that 2 years before that?
DK might have been
Justin
DK.
Jefferson
and AJ Brown.
mhm.
Brown that
Oh
year.
yeah, AJ Brown, then DK.
So yeah, I mean, we're seeing it more and more where these guys come in and just if they're in the right situation can blow up. So yeah, I'll say yes. I think, and more so not because of what we just saw with changes, but how we've seen these guys hit the ground literally running.
I'm so glad this is how it ended up because we've kind of been trashing this year's draft class, and rightfully so for the quarterback position when we talk about futures and keepers. And it's 3 for 3, yes. After all this talk about veterans and trades and free agency and numbers and we all agree that now you look towards these rookies and be like, okay, I can find somebody in the flex. As Kyle laid out there's so many teams that want to just save money and be like, we'll just take somebody in the draft. And production-wise, as Chet laid out the history, shown us that you got to take some of these guys. So I think more likely than ever before to take somebody. Maybe I'll just tell us a name out there, like Chris Olave from Ohio State. What if he goes to the Packers? They finally, for like 15 years, they've been asking for it. It could happen. Drake London, I know he's the big, also the most fake name possible, right? Like the soap opera star Drake London, who got hurt at USC. He seems like another one. We could do it. We mentioned Kenneth Walker already. Like we could do a bunch of these, but it's more of, okay, you guys who are in my fantasy league, if you don't follow the college game, have all these big time changes and more. I'll take somebody a little bit higher than usual, and we'll see if this rookie gives me the stats that I want.
Oh, I can't wait for drafts. Man, it's still so far away.
Speaking about the draft, not a fantasy draft, but the NFL draft, I'm going to email both of you here in a little bit. We've got some movement on the way involving the Gozilla Media draft. I'll just leave that as a tease right there.
Are we not seeing Hooters?
There are things in motion, we'll just say.
Are they Hooters?
I will say this. We're like a college recruit that's getting offers. We'll put it like that. I'm not trying to use that for leverage for some businesses, but we're like a college recruit getting offers. Yeah.
NIL.
All right. That's a tease we'll leave with for now. You did mention Hooters, though, Chet. Just a quick reminder. March Madness this Friday, 5:30 to 7. Levakians will be there thanks to our partners over at Hooters. So if you don't watch St. Peter's versus Purdue, that game will tip off right when we wrap up. If you want to watch us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. And if you want some fantasy questions, right into that as well. Guys, maybe I'll see you at Hooters.
Should we go get a brew at Hooters for the start of the tip-off?
When is it? Friday?
Friday, 5:30 to 7.
So we got to chat, because Ashley, I'll tap.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
I'm going to hit end broadcast before somebody's wife gets in trouble. All right, I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.